Round
Hey,
two, fight. So we're really finding all these technical glitches, and I think we got to sort it out. So we look to having a great show and having a great week of shows. Like I said earlier, if we're going to have another show Thursday to make up for the lack of 2 weeks that we've been non-existent. We have some great shows. We are going to go over some current events, some of the crazy news this past weekend with Ukraine and the Russian president, and how this impacts us here in the states, and talk about policy differences between us and Russia. So we have a great show, a very impactful show. We're going to try to do. We're going to try to get all our thoughts out, and you get our different perspective on everything. But with that being said, we have a guest, Amanda. We're going to hold her intro until we Seth introduces himself, and then Seth is going to introduce Amanda for us.
you
And this is
said
what
Seth
starts off with
introduced
Seth.
himself?
Introduce you.
Okay,
No,
well, Seth.
Seth says hi. Is
Hopefully, you guys
hi.
know me by now.
Introduce Amanda. Yeah.
Is my screen working? I'm just
Yes.
so
Yeah.
doubtful at this point.
Now he's like,
Okay.
now Seth is like subconscious
All
of
right.
his technology.
Yeah, my technology's trash. Why? Because it's brand new. Anyways, it's Amanda. Amanda's
Hello.
been a OG Jesse Philippe fan since the beginning, right? It's been a
Yeah.
Pretty
while.
much. Pretty much. Yeah.
She's number one,
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
All
and
right.
we
I'll
finally
try.
got her on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
I don't really have a lot to say. Yeah, you go ahead, Amanda.
Oh, okay.
Let's introduce you.
Okay. Okay. Well, hi. My name's Amanda Finley. I live in Kansas City, Missouri. I was just doing my thing. I was an archaeologist, and then COVID came along and slapped me back to the ground, and not in a way that I could dig my way out of. I have what's called long COVID. Um, and for the first few months, I thought I was alone. And then I found out about two other people, and I was like, oh, yeah, start a Facebook group for that. Because that's what I do. I do Facebook groups for everything in life and Google Docs. That's what we do.
Yeah.
And I thought we'd find 50 people. 15,000 people later, there are not 50 of us. There are actually over 64 million of us worldwide who are struggling with long COVID. Many of us are suffering from the socioeconomic impacts of that. So we'll get into that later, I guess.
Well, let's jump on that now.
Let's
I
do
mean,
it. Okay, let's do it.
we're already talking about it. So tell me,
Right.
the long COVID. What is some for our viewers who don't know? What is some of the things that separate long COVID from the short term COVID that me and many other people experience? What are some of the differences?
Well, that's up for a lot of debate right now. Basically, in my opinion, if you have had COVID and you have symptoms that have just persisted after that, that is a form of long COVID. There are some groups who are trying to more narrowly define that, but I think in narrowly defining it, we're leaving people behind because then you won't be able to access care at a long COVID clinic, if you're able to access one at all.
Yeah.
It really shuts you out of the whole process of this being related to COVID. And it could be anything because COVID isn't a respiratory disease. It's actually a vascular disease. It attacks any part of the body. So we see people not with just respiratory complaints, but also we see a lot of GI complaints, gastrointestinal complaints, people who their entire GI tract slows down. Or they have problems with their pancreas, so they develop diabetes or malnutrition. So their pancreas isn't creating these digestive enzymes anymore. You can eat, and your body isn't digesting it. It just goes through you, and you eat and eat and eat and lose weight, and you waste away. It's pretty horrific. Neurological complaints, a lot of cardiac complaints. I've got a lot of cardiac issues now that I did not have before. I've never had cardiac issues. Um, there are some people who fatigue is a big one. Cognitive decline is also really big. There are a lot of people who, maybe they were in nursing before. It's not safe for them to go about dosing out meds now. They physically can't anymore anyhow. And we're told things like, oh, well, you should exercise, you should eat better. Well, okay, number one, they have malabsorption. It doesn't matter what they eat. Nothing is being digested. And number two, if you exercise, it actually makes it worse. It produces what's called post exertional malaise. Now, because of this, and people, it's easy enough to say, oh, we'll just get on disability. It doesn't just happen overnight. Uh, Generally, your first round will take about 6 months, and most of us are denied the first time. So we're looking at a process that takes months, really years. And even then, it's not a livable income. Um, there are a lot of people who have gone homeless, myself included. I got back into housing a year ago, was living in a tent in the woods. It
Mm.
was 100 degrees that week, every day that week in Kansas City. The same week I moved into this apartment last May, a woman in her tent died in Kansas City.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, I'm seeing people who are going without medicine right now because they can't afford it. I've seen people, their utilities are being shut off. It's a really dire situation. And if you think about this, with over 20 million long haulers in the United States alone, we've got a very serious problem. It's starting to affect the economy because we have people who can't return to work, or they're not able to produce at work at the same levels that they were before. So starting back in late last year, we started to see articles being popped out about, hey, have you thought about the economic impact? No, they haven't. And really, what this boils down to is poverty alleviation becomes a matter of public health. If we can enable people to stay home when they have COVID or whatever, it doesn't even have to be COVID at this point because it does trash your immune system. So we've got people developing shingles, we've got people developing all kinds of really terrible things. Um, RSV is going around, so many things. Um, but if we can enable people to stay home and recuperate, that helps. And it also helps reduce the transmission because if we can reduce transmission, it makes it better for everybody else. So the big thing though is that if you are a gig
Hmm.
worker like I was, if you stay home, you don't have pay, you lose your home.
Mm. Yeah. That's
And there's no security along with that. They don't have any sort of unemployment or the through the company or whatever.
You know,
Anything for disability. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You don't get those benefits as a gig worker. And really, we have an entire economy built on the backs of gig workers. We rely on them for our grocery deliveries, for our food deliveries, for so many things. But there's
Hmm.
nothing backing them up. It's a very dangerous place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Seth sent me an article this week about the UBI, something like we've always talked about, UBI and its impact. And that article is very true. I mean, that just UBI is supposed to be this one stop solution to providing a basic foundation for people to have in respects to job security. Because the reality is, as AI gets stronger and stronger and bigger, and long COVID gets more and more diagnosed, like you're saying, it's very underdiagnosed right now because people are still trying to define it. What's going to eventually happen is you're going to have a lot of people who can't get to the workforce, and they're going to need some kind of ability to have some kind of support. And the UBI
Hmm.
program, which means I've talked about for now going on years, is something that is we believe would help, especially people who are suffering with COVID. Um, and yeah,
Hmm.
it pains me to hear that, Amanda, you have to go through what you've gone through so far. Um, but hopefully, this platform, gets people eyes open, and that COVID is not gone; it's still around, and it still has dire effects on people's lives, even as today's date. And I just hope that people hear your story, and as your community is getting bigger, almost 34. I think you said 34 million. Correct if I'm wrong. Um,
Yeah, 64 million worldwide.
yeah,
Yeah,
64 million people, that you can be a champion and a voice for them, with this platform and other platforms, so that we can stress the importance of having programs like UBI and more research and more diagnosis, more defining, and the more ability to access disability. Because in my world, I believe disability should be covered under UBI, and we should have one
yeah,
stop because I've seen many people in the disability track, and it's not pretty because it's hard to get and it's very little once
it
you do
is.
get approved.
Yeah.
So I'm championing for the cause, and
Thank you.
I really believe that the more platforms like these that you're able to get on would definitely spread the word and the message. You threw a lot of stuff in there, and
Uh,
I myself am not. No, I've studied a lot of this long COVID stuff. If you ask my wife, she's always making fun of me because I always say that, you know, I believe I'm having these cardiac issues. She's like, man, you're just paranoid. But so I'm very interested to know some of those ramifications with the cardio and how it has a direct impact with long COVID. And I think that hopefully you come on weekly, and then or wherever Seth works the schedule out, we can get you more on to talk about updates and news.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that more research that essentially helps our audience understands the impact, because a lot of people are either dealing with it or don't know about it yet because it hasn't been
Exactly.
properly diagnosed it. So
A lot of people don't make that correlation of they have these weird symptoms that pop up like a month or two or however long after COVID, and they don't think, oh, well, I had COVID, it was just like a mild cough and blah blah blah. But
yeah,
now my heart rate is all over the place, my blood pressure is sky high. What's going on? Hey, guess what? I can tell
yeah,
you what's going on. Step into my office. Um,
exactly.
and
And,
oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
and how
I had COVID at least. I can't imagine the amount of damage in my heart and stuff like that. Like I can tell that there's some sort of consequences that are not even at the surface yet, and I'm too afraid to even get checked out because I don't want to get delivered bad news or whatever. But
one
Hey,
of
let me
those.
tell you, jump on
However,
that stuff earlier. It's a good idea. Um,
I
yeah,
mean,
so I
yeah, that's true. But last time I went to the doctor, I got a medical bill for $1,500 just for talking to a doctor for
right,
15 minutes. So it's just
right. Yeah.
it's just so
even with
ridiculous
that
the
was
way
with
everything is
telehealth.
set.
That with telehealth.
What was that?
Did you go to like the telephone doctor and they charge you that much, or did you actually go to the physical
No,
doctor?
it was like a ENT, and I had my insurance, and I put it in and covered $40 out of the
Oh my gosh.
out of the almost 1,600,
Wow.
Jesus,
which is
that's
ridiculous. Because like, what doctor is worth $1,500 an hour, like for just giving one piece of advice that maybe I got like surgeries
Yeah.
because I moved to a new area, like this and that. Like
making
it
$1,500 an
discourages
hour.
people from going to the doctor. Yeah, I'm
It
just
also
no. I
kills
said
people.
he made what 1,500. Yes, of
It
course.
literally kills
And
people. I had a friend who
people
died outside
talk
Houston.
talk. Yeah.
Oh, so you had a friend that
It
died.
kills something like $60,000 or 60,000 people in America a year, something like that. Like just not being able to go to the doctor because they don't have the coverage,
Yeah.
and that doesn't include the amount of people that suffer from stuff that doesn't get taken care of. Not just death.
Yeah.
Like millions of people suffer every year from untreated coverage or untreated whatever they're suffering from. They
Yeah,
can't get coverage because they can't afford it. They don't want to take the risks, and people talk about like, oh, we don't want to have a Canadian healthcare system because of all the long lines and people have to wait. Well, at least they're in a line and not just waiting to die. Or like the reason why they have long lines is because people are actually trying to get coverage. If we had everybody who wanted to get coverage in America going to the doctor right now, we would have lines too. But for some reason, we think it's a good idea to just discourage people from going to the doctor or getting care because it costs money or because it doesn't make any sense. It's a backward system
It
because
really
it's
is.
just based on profitability.
It
Yeah,
is. My
it's one of the
I
most corrupt. Go ahead.
It is. No, I started doing coding, billing, transcription, and some CNA work when I was 15. I kind of got volunteered, like conscripted. They break the bottle over your head and you wake up and you're doing medical transcription. That's my dad was in the Navy.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it really is messed up. Um, and a lot of that we see a lot of what goes on behind the scenes in insurance is very proprietary. We don't, even after spending 30 years doing this, I don't even know the ins and outs of what goes on because they keep that very hush hush. Um,
Hmm.
but for example, There was one insurance company in an office that I worked for. We stopped, even though it's one of the biggest companies globally, or in the United States, I should say, we stopped accepting it because we would submit a claim for, say, $150. They would pay 20 and then write off a whole big chunk of it and then tell the patient you're responsible for the rest. But we would get $15 off of that. And it was like, why are we doing this? This is not acceptable. You
Yeah.
know what? We're not gonna take that insurance anymore. And that was telling patients who'd been going there for years, sorry, we don't accept your insurance anymore.
Yeah, that happened to
Yeah.
me. I was Ubering in college, well, law school. I was Ubering to kind of pay my rent. And so I would, the trick with Uber and anyone who Ubers, gig workers, here's a little tip. If you're going to do gig work, always go to rich areas. So I went to this really
Yeah.
affluent area in the Tampa area. And so I would pick up these doctors and stuff like that. And there was one doctor in particular that I picked up. He would said to me, he's like, we are just talking. And then he was just telling me, he's like, yeah, I really don't like Obamacare, but it's not really a big deal to me. I know it's a big deal for other people because all I do is just jack up my rates, and then
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I mean, then when I jack up my rates, the insurance will bring it down to where it normally costs me, and I just think like, wait, isn't that like fraud? Like you openly admitting that the doctor jacks up the rates because he knows the insurance is going to knock it down to his normal rate, and that's how much he makes. So it's like you're bypassing a system that was designed to help people to get affordable health insurance. You're just kind of reversing on the people, making them believe that they're actually in this discount when in reality they're not.
No.
And
Well,
so, yeah, go ahead.
oh, no, well, one big problem with the ACA is that no one ever came to any of the coders and billers to say, "Hey, how does this thing work?" They just went to the doctors and said, "How does no?" The doctors don't really know how this thing works.
Yeah,
So here we had this thing, and the thing to remember is that it's the Affordable Care Act. Even though it had good intentions, it had, like, we were supposed to make this more accessible, but
mhm,
instead it kind of gummed up the system, and it made it even easier to jack up the prices and to make it more profitable for the people who really don't need it.
exactly. And
Because fundamentally, it's just a subsidized private healthcare industry, and when you promise a certain amount of money that's going to go to these private and it's guaranteed by the government, they're going to increase. They're just going to increase their costs because it's just going to bring them in more profit. Like, why wouldn't you if it's guaranteed money? When you're basing all of your decisions based on profit, it's a no-brainer. And like
yeah,
that's the reason why we spend twice as much per person as every other country for not better results. It
Yeah.
just goes directly in the pockets of those people who are scamming you. We have all these different private payment plans and it doesn't guarantee even good remotely good coverage. People are just they talk shit about like, oh, I don't want to pay for somebody's blah 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 blah. Bro, you are paying for them anyways, not
You're
only
paying
through
more.
taxes and the government is doing that, but also you're paying private insurance payment plans where you guys are all putting together your money so that you pay part of this per month and you get guaranteed a certain amount of coverage. It is the same kind of concept where you're paying for somebody else's coverage, but it's to worse results, and it's
Yeah.
to be siphoned away to salesmen essentially.
Yeah,
It doesn't benefit us at all to not have a public healthcare industry.
and it costs more. It costs so much more, and it gets back
Yeah,
to the crux of this entire conversation,
it's so
which is
conservative.
prevention
right.
is cheaper. Prevention is fiscally more responsible. If we can prevent people from getting sick in the first place or going through, like, it's just to get back into this apartment cost thousands of dollars more than it would have had I just stayed in an apartment to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I think that goes to this economy overall. I was watching this interview President Barack Obama gave today. He actually gave it to, I think her name was Amanpour, something on CNN.
Oh, Christiana Amanpour. Uh-huh.
Yes, Christina Amanpour. And I was watching it today, and it was like the first thing I noticed is like, man, it feels good to have a president who actually can make go-ahead sentences. It was insane.
Yes.
I was like, man, it's so
it's been a
refreshing.
while.
Because no, I was listening to him and I was just like, because usually with Trump, I can listen to him for like 5 minutes
Click.
and then I just click because I know it's all
Yeah.
bullshit. and with well, who was the other guy? It's Trump,
Biden's Biden,
Biden. I don't even,
Bush.
I don't even. Well, Bush. I just left. I just listened to him to laugh because he was just so retarded. And then Biden, I don't even listen to at all.
Yeah.
I just like I watch. It was funny, but Biden. I watch his press secretary speaks more than I actually watch him speak.
Right?
Yeah, so it's like
Someone
You
with
can't really hear much.
clarity.
You can't listen to
yeah,
Kamala talk either.
no,
You
not
can't really
Kamala.
listen to Kamala talk either because it's just a bunch of nonsense
It's
just off the
scripted.
top of her head. Like
It's
it's scripted,
puppeteering.
and when
And
it's
it's
not,
bad.
it's not coherent. It's just a bunch of it's a word salad that goes
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely nowhere. And like fake charisma, her fake laugh, it's just so transparent. You're
yeah.
not really getting any information or guidance or leadership from either of them. I
So
mean,
that's why
Biden is doing what he can, but
I don't blame Biden. Biden's like really old.
we
Like
Yeah.
I don't blame him.
yeah, exactly.
As long as the government's running functionally, which it is at this point, I'm fine. I don't expect Biden to inspire me. That's not why he's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's there
I
yeah,
He's kind of the rebound president, I think.
yeah. He's the
You
rebound
know?
president.
Kind of is. I mean, you're
Yeah.
hang in there, buddy, until we can get like
Yeah,
someone in here who can really do something. But
exactly. Just kind of hold it down
But
for
that's
us.
what's really concerning is he should know better than to run for president again. Like the Democrats could have a chance if they nominated somebody like even like Gavin Newsom, who I'm not a giant fan of, but he has
yeah,
the juice to become president, and
He
he
does.
he can carry on the Democratic administration. And by having Biden run again, both gives like he's one of the most unpopular politicians in the country.
yeah,
Mm.
He's just not very popular amongst independents and Republicans, and so that makes it scary to risk having Trump get reelected. And
yeah,
also, even if Biden even did get elected, that's 4 years of insecurity and the risk of Kamala Harris having to take the helm for the next 8 years or whatever it's,
And that's why
which is terrifying to me because you could pick almost anybody else, and I would feel more confident.
and that's why I
I
said
don't want to have to risk Republicans' power.
it's why I always tell you if Trump was the nominee, Biden wins in a landslide. If it's anyone else, we're gonna have a hard time.
yeah, yeah.
And and I hope
Yeah, that's
and I
true.
think the party knows
But maybe
that,
not
and I think that's why
DeSantis.
maybe not the census because the census is universally unpopular. But Nikki
Yeah,
Haley is
he's
very
he's
dangerous.
he's definitely lost it.
Yeah, he lost the juice. It looks so bad. I was like, man, this guy's been campaigning. All right,
Yeah.
this is my sidebar. DeSantis has been campaigning for president for 4 years. He
Yeah,
literally ran his whole entire state
yeah,
on the premise that he was running for president. And he comes out the gate, he looks terrible. Everyone in the country doesn't like him. They hear him speak, they hate him. And it's like that was a waste of 4 years of Florida 4 years because you did all these policies that was never good for Florida, but you did it because you wanted to get elected to become the next president of the United
yeah.
States, and you're doing a terrible job. It's like you
Well,
can't be elected.
who says I'm gonna break the swamp when
Yeah.
he is the swamp?
Yeah,
How would you are literally the swamp
Oh,
down
I
there?
don't
Like, oh my
understand
God.
why
doesn't
he
get more
talks like he's
swamp
some
than
kind of. Why does he talk like he's some guy from the country of like just a redneck place? It doesn't make any sense. It's like, bro, you went to Harvard, Harvard Law, and it's like, don't try to pretend like you're some kind of down guy, like you were in the streets, like you weren't, like you're not
wearing his blue
someone
jeans
who,
and his belt buckle.
And it's
yeah,
like,
it's like you're not a farmer, you're not. It's just like you're not from rural America, you're not from the city, the suburbs. You're from what is it, Tarpon Springs in Pinellas County. It's like he just comes out
Isn't he
so.
from like Jacksonville or something?
He was a congressional. He was a there. He was there. I think he was a congressman from Jacksonville. Yeah, he got elected in
Something
Jacksonville.
like that.
Yeah, but it's like
I know he's just affiliated some way.
yeah, but you're not this. At least I mean, for
he's
me,
not one of the people.
he's not the people. It's like at least with Trump, he's like he clearly says he's not about the people. He's about his money and business.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
The- I-
funny.
yeah, that's what he's about. But I hate politicians like you guys are saying this, but Camilla, I hate politicians who come off as like, oh, I'm this guy and I'm from the streets and I'm from the rural of America and I actually I come from a poor family and I really understand what you guys are going through.
Right.
It's
Step
like,
into my tent. You want to milk a goat? I'll show you how to milk a goat.
yeah, it's like
Come on.
because I always say there's no difference between a poor person in the city and a poor person in the rural area.
No.
There is no difference. The
Yeah.
reality is they both come from struggle. They both have to put their shoes on every day, and they both have to fight for just the opportunity to eat every single day. So I hate when the politicians come off like I'm that guy when you know you're not that guy, and that's why I can't stand about Camilla. That's why I can't stand about any politician who does that. Um, and if that's
Yeah.
why I hate Trump because he does it all the time.
The big
It's like I'm that guy. He's like your dad was a millionaire and you got $1 million to start life. Like you
And then he
can't,
tanked it.
yeah.
Like,
yeah, and then you fail like 3 or 4 times at being a millionaire. What 6 times at being a millionaire, and it's like okay, I'm done with my little soapbox,
that's
but
okay. I'm with you.
but no. So the reality is we need some more authentic leadership. Just everywhere because right now I feel like there's a lot. I feel like our politicians now are just all actors and actresses. I
Yeah.
feel like none
Yeah.
of them actually really believe what they're saying. It's like they follow the party lines and they truly don't believe it. That's why someone like Bernie Sanders did so well because he was very authentic,
Yeah.
and that's what we need in our politicians to stand where you
I think
sit.
the reason Bernie's able to stay so authentic is also the reason why everybody else is so robotic. And I think that that's specifically because I don't think everybody starts off that way, but
Yeah.
the system itself changes them, and it's through campaign finance that they have to spend all day being salesmen talking to rich donors, people who like to hear they like the song and dance, they like the games, the act, the showmanship, like from that you'll see from Kamala. Like it's a very polished game where you have to know how to talk to these kind of people, and you have to talk to them 8-10 hours a day trying to get a certain amount of money all day every day. Instead of talking to constituents, instead of talking to the people in your neighborhood, you're talking to rich people all around the country, begging them for donors and promising to change nothing but you know do nothing that's gonna risk their power or their hold over society. And that's why
Yeah,
Bernie was able to stay authentic, is he had nobody he was catering to except for the people who were small dollar donors that would actually contribute to his campaign, that gave it the power in the first place. That's the real problem, is campaign finance is it ultimately turns regular people into agents of the state, into agents of the donor class, and then they become, in the second they're elected, they gotta jump back on the phone to get reelected. It's a game for them to just job security for them. They don't care as
Yeah.
much about actually getting anything done.
Well, and it's no longer citizen representation, which is a huge problem.
yeah,
And that's I met you, Jesse, the same way I met quite a few other people.
Not that it ever
I
does
just went
that.
through I went everywhere, all over social media the last couple of years, and I would fire off a quick DM. What do you know about long COVID? And I would attach a message. I would attach an article and go. If I heard back, it was like, hey, let's talk. I heard, someone in northern Georgia, a state rep there, was like, not enough. And hey, we're going to talk, aren't we? Uh,
yeah,
and that really that means everything. I don't care what color your little dot is there. If you're going to listen, let's talk, because
yeah.
that's really what we need. It shouldn't matter what color that dot is. If you're going to listen to your constituency, that's what it's supposed to be about.
Yeah, because there's multiple ways to get to where you're trying to go. That's why I
Yeah.
don't care if you're Democrat or Republican, but as long as you're authentic to
Yep.
your true belief that I want to move this country forward. The reason why I tend to be Democratic is because the other party doesn't really believe in that.
Yeah.
They believe in the status quo. They don't actually believe in pushing the country forward.
Yeah.
And I think that in these next 20 years, with AI growing, with all these things like long COVID and many issues that can't really be addressed in the private sector, we're going to need government more and more and more to play a role intertwined into our lives. And that's why I think that the progressive message is the message right now, because it really actually is addressing the needs of most people. But I say that to sit there and say that our politicians now are not even progressive or conservative. They're not even talking about the needs of the actual people. They're talking about things that Joe Schmo don't really care about.
Right.
You know, and
Mhm.
that's becoming the disconnect. I mean, and right now I blame it on, I can easily blame it on social media, but really it's not social media. I blame it on this lack of courage that comes from a lot of politicians now.
Yes.
They're
Yeah.
afraid. It's like they have like,
Yeah.
and you know what's crazy? And okay, I'm back in my soapbox. You know what's really crazy? These politicians care about these positions. Like I ran and I lost, but that for them that's their life. It's like
Yeah.
this position. It's like, bro, that job pays you thirty
Yeah.
thousand dollars a year. If you can find a job that pays you $30,000 a year, you suck. You're not doing well in life. But instead, you focused on spending hours upon hours to make this $30,000, and it's you can make 30, 40, and take $10,000 and invest in something like Amanda's doing, and actually do some research to get long COVID going. So that's kind of where a lot of people have been asking me lately, "Well, when am I going to run again?" And I'm like, "Look, yeah, I'm like I'm a lawyer. It's like I have more of an impact making money as a lawyer and giving it back to the people than I did if I sit there and give them a speech for 5, 10 minutes and I don't give them anything back. And that's my impact right now. What
Mhm.
is real leadership? Real leadership is making sure you're helping the people who needs help the most. It's not to sit there and feel good about
Yeah.
yourself because you gave yourself a good speech for 5 minutes. And it's like, oh my God, everyone clapped for me or everyone made me feel good about this speech I gave. It's like, who cares? A person that goes home at night after hearing that speech is still hungry,
Yeah.
and it's like,
Yeah. And
and
it's
we have,
it's go ahead.
go ahead, Seth.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's just unfortunate that it we're so reliant on people like you who can actually give money to people because charity exists and is as necessary it is because we don't have any social safety net like we've seen works in
Yep.
all these
Exactly.
other countries. We have it's so means
Right.
tested and so bone just for fiscal conservatism when in reality instead of doing means test instead of universal programs, the means tested programs are costly because of administrative costs and because of the inefficiency that comes with that money that they're spending on intentionally excluding like wealthier people or whatever. They could just give money to everybody back and then people get it a lot more directly and then we would have a lot more efficient and economically we can say conservative system because the reality is like these kind of who are trying to cut costs in all these minute little ways are really creating more inefficient systems. And when system programs don't work very well, they're not very defensible on the
Mhm.
Democratic side. It's very easy to attack from Republicans, especially like, oh, you're telling me I have to pay for poor people instead of like Scandinavian countries. They have a lot more comfortability with having to pay because it's something that benefit that they can see the benefit. They can see healthcare. People get
Yeah.
childcare. People have disability guarantees, unemployment guarantees, all this sort of stuff, and it's something that they all share as a society. It's not just something where rich people pay everything and poor people get benefits, but poor people don't really get benefits. The benefits that exist are directed for poor people, so you can just attack poor people and say like, oh, they're not benefiting the system, they're not contributing. It's just such a divided system because of essentially the liberals, the Democratic Party is too busy catering to because they want to get elected. It's the idea that the centrist is the most electable. In reality, the most electable
Mhm.
person is somebody that actually delivers results, somebody that benefits your life. That's why Trump supporters are mostly to out of Democrat to vote for Bernie, the most diametrically opposite candidate there is, because he actually would promising things that would affect their day to day lives. Hillary Clinton just talked about just the status quo and how we're going to reform the system 5% this way, and we need to just keep on forward and keep doing the same thing. Like, it's just not a very promising message, and
Yeah,
it was a lot of empty rhetoric. When Bernie, you could see
exactly.
exactly what he was talking about. Every time he went to Norway, he'd point to these countries where there's actually, you can see the benefits going to the people. You can see people's lives getting better, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It's the system won't allow us to do anything that takes away power from the most powerful people.
I think
Exactly.
I think there are a few people out
So
there, a few strong people out there. I'm thinking of one in particular who has the same hair I do. And thank you for listening to me, Queen. Uh, people who aren't afraid to take a stand. And man, I will follow those people to the freaking grave. You say the word, I will do
yeah,
the thing. But so few people are, and I honestly kind of wonder sometimes, is she so fierce? Because I get this, like when you are a woman with alopecia, you either wear a wig and you hide it, which is, and that's not to say, not to throw any bad words onto like anyone who wears I just don't like a wig. I don't like, they are hot, they are uncomfortable, and I just didn't
Yeah.
feel authentic wearing one. Like, y'all know I'm bald. Like, why am I trying to cover this? But there's something, when you step out into the world as a woman with alopecia, you really just take no shit. It's like, this is who I am. You're gonna have to deal with it, okay?
Yeah.
And
and you're
man,
referring
when
to
she,
Ayanna Presley, right?
Ayanna Pressley, yeah, when she ditched that wig, I think
Yeah.
in 2018, I just, oh my gosh, it was the first time I saw myself out there in the world in the news. Like, oh, look at that,
Mhm.
wow. And then when she followed me, I was like, what? Oh my god. And then her aide followed. I was like, what, double what? We are gonna talk, okay. I just, she's a very authentic person. She is fierce but gentle
Yeah.
but authentic, and I appreciate that. And I've decided that if nothing comes of my life here in Kansas City in 8 years, once my kid is 18, I'm moving to Massachusetts so I can vote for her.
There it is. That's your one right is to
There
move,
you go.
Yep.
especially for all these crazy conservative governors. Speaking of that,
Well, we have the wrong people running in the wrong ways from Missouri, so hi,
yeah.
Josh Hawley.
Yeah.
Yo,
Cory
speaking.
Bush is pretty good though.
Oh, Cory Bush. I moved from St. Louis at the wrong time. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's pretty
Yeah.
good.
She's great.
So
She's a
one of the
baller for
things
sure. Someone else
that,
that I'm only bringing up because oh, go ahead. I was just gonna
we had
mention something
delay.
I saw that's interesting.
Oh, what'd you see?
Oh, can you hear me?
I can
Yeah.
hear you now. You're just delayed.
Okay, so if it wasn't for this delay, I would pull up on Twitter so I could show you. But if you guys look at Rokana's Twitter account right now,
Us.
Ro Connor.
it does not look
Rokana.
like somebody.
KHA.
It does not look like somebody that's running for Senate or even for House of Representatives. It Rokana. He looks.
Hmm.
Twitter bio looks like somebody about to run for president, and he's
Help me spell it.
progressive, who I learned about when I was
ROKHANNA.
RO.
RO. Uh-huh.
He's actually like
KHANNA.
30 minutes from me.
Hey, you can text him. His number's right there. I'm gonna
Yeah,
text him.
I actually texted him yesterday. I told him to
Ro
run.
Connor Mahler.
I don't know if he's even gonna read it.
What? Okay.
What was
What's his
that?
last name? What's
Kana. KHANNA.
Con.
Yeah, he's from California.
KHA.
Yeah, he's from
The doctor.
like San Jose area, really.
Mhm.
But
I've seen this guy before.
his Twitter bio is a vision for. Yeah, he's very familiar. I
Mhm.
learned about him when I was a conservative, and I remember him being like, I'm like, wow, this guy is very genuine. I really like this guy. He always engages with other conservatives, and he's always talks
Yeah.
in good faith. And he's actually pretty. I don't think he's a socialist, but he's very progressive. He's not a socialist. He has a bunch of like stocks and stuff. But he's also like he's a very progressive person. Talks about healthcare and education and whatever. His Twitter bio is a vision for new economic patriotism. Let's invent it, make it, and buy in America. Pro worker, pro union, pro family, pro growth. And his header is like this giant crowd at a Bernie rally, and it looks a lot
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
presidential announcement. I think it just
He's a congressman from
It very much
17.
sounds like somebody who wants to run for higher office.
Well, that's good. It's all about hope and
Because
change.
I know he's,
Yep.
yeah. And I think
Well,
that's
and
something we really need is obviously he's like Marianne Williamson, but like with he's got the credibility. He's on all these committees. He's been elected. He's known across the board. I think that he's somebody. It's not like, oh, can you guys still hear me? I got a notification.
oh,
Yeah,
you're good.
All right, we're still good. Okay.
yeah, we're good.
I'd be nervous every time. But yeah, I think that would be. I think that people would actually jump in line and vote for Ro Khanna.
Yeah, I think they would be. He's, and I gotta tell you, we need more people like that. People who, I am gonna text him, and if I hear something back, okay, let's talk. But what really, we
Yeah.
had mayoral elections years ago in Kansas City, and when Jason Kander dropped out of the race, I was like, well, shoot, I'm gonna vote for her now. I don't know. We had, I think, 11 or 12 candidates that year.
Yeah.
So I listened to all of the interviews on KCUR, our local NPR affiliate, and there were two people that stood out to me. I messaged both of them. Never expected to hear back. One of them, well, I expected to hear like, I like an automated message. I expected that. Got that from one. The other one wrote back directly, and I was like, oh shoot, okay. And she said, "Can we talk?" I said, "You bet. Tonight, absolutely." And that was the first time I ever went out and campaigned for anyone.
Wow.
She ended up coming in third in the primary because in KC, it's we don't do parties in the mayoral election. So first two who come in, like the first two contenders in the primaries go on to the general. And the other person I messaged wound up becoming the mayor of KC. Um, but that's the gist of it though. Like if I can reach out to you, if I can reach out to someone and they're going to reach out in return, I'm going to be a lot more likely to say, hey, okay, I'm on board with you. Tell me more. Are you going to listen to me? Because that's the again, it doesn't matter to me what color that little dot is. If you're going to listen, that's what this is about. I stormed, I don't know if I told y'all this, I used to storm a lot of Twitter spaces, but I saw this Twitter space one night about 2 years ago. There were maybe 100 or so people in it, and I don't remember the title of it, but it was a Republican space. And I was like, what's going on in here? So I went in, requested a mic. They gave me a mic. I waited with my little Twitter hand up very patiently. And finally, someone said, hey, would you please let her talk? She's been waiting forever. I said, thank you. And I just laid it down for them. I am in a tent in the woods. Here's the deal. We don't have citizen representation anymore. This is where I am. This is how I got here and why.
Yeah.
And here's the deal. We sent you to DC to do a job. You failed. You were supposed to listen, and instead, all you do is this. And I just let it sit there. It was like silent, dead silent for 60 seconds. And finally, the biggest blowhard came back in and said, well, go on, we're listening. And I said, okay, you better check your DMs. If I'm not in there yet, soon will be. Big blowhard said, well, you're not in mine. I said, go back and check. So he did. He came back. He was like, oh, you messaged me last week. Yes, sir, I did. And it just really, even though it was a group of people I normally would not have much in common with, I felt like in that one moment, in a tent in the woods, in the middle of nowhere, there was a possibility for change. Like, maybe something's possible here. Maybe if I can get just one or two people to listen
Yeah.
and carry that message forward, we can do something with this.
I like that. That's beautiful, and that's what it's about. It's about
We need
having your
representatives.
local politicians speak to your heart and listen to what you're feeling. That's what it's about, and that's what politics is about. It's
Supposed to
listening.
be. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, Seth, you were saying something before I cut you off. I know the delay kills me.
Oh, I was just saying, like representatives need to like fulfill title and represent the constituency. Like that's their job. Is supposed to be the
Yes.
voice of the people. They're not supposed to be the voice over the people. They're not leaders. They're not commanders. They're supposed to
Exactly.
be what we are. We
Yeah.
can't all talk at the same time. We need somebody that's supposed to represent our vision. And 90% of districts are represented only by the status quo, the donor class, the establishment politicians that helped them get elected in the first place. It's not a system meant to represent the people, and we need to all come together to actually retake the system so that we can turn it upside down, so we can be from the bottom up, build up a new society. And there's examples all around the world of it working better. There's not a perfect country, but little pieces in every single country do things better than us, and we can figure
Mhm.
out this by just following the numbers. And it's not what we're doing right now. And by doing nothing to
No.
change, we're just empowering inefficiency and just people suffering without any help. I
Right.
mean, there's stuff that we can do just by just by being more representative, and like actually fulfilling the promise of, if you are an American, you have the right to vote. Right now, that's not even guaranteed in every part of the country. They people places like in Georgia where they're intentionally trying to prevent people from voting. Like this has been happening for the last 4 years. The swing states are gerrymandered and preventing
Mhm.
democracy. That's why Republicans are so dangerous. They're trying to get more people to vote, and they're trying to get less people to vote, because the less people who have a
And that
voice,
makes no
the less people they have to change their system.
Mhm.
So, I mean, you can tell
I
who's got a
agree.
good idea by who
Yeah,
trusts the
and
people to make that decision.
some of these people that are trying to stop them to vote, they've created this new movement called. It was kind of a legal theory that essentially said that the states are has the ultimate choice in deciding on how elections should be run and governed. This is a theory
Mhm.
that's Trump started when he was in office, and the whole conservative movement kind of took it and ran with it. And what ended up happening was it got all the way up to the Supreme Court. And I'm glad Jeff brought this topic up because the Supreme Court came down today and said, "Hey, guess what? You can't do that. You know, this country was founded on uh, federalism, and the states do not have autonomy to go ahead and rewrite their election laws if it directly affects the federal election laws." And so I thought that was a good win for us because Trump has been saying all this times, "Oh, we could just rewrite the election." You know, state of Georgia, you could just do whatever you want.
Mhm.
And the federal Supreme Court said, no, that is not true.
Yeah.
And so that was a good victory for us as progressive. And as you were saying that stuff, that kind of popped into my mind that's something the Republicans have been trying to do
Mhm.
for a while here for a couple of years, and they definitely just lost this battle recently. And
Yeah, it's hard for them to say they didn't when they have a 6-3 Supreme Court, and it should be heavily weighted in their favor. Yet, even the Republicans on the court saying, "Nah, no, you are not following the Constitution. You're preventing people from voting. You're trying to subvert elections. Just
yeah,
being a sore loser."
yeah, they are because not only was that passed, and good catch, Amanda. Not
Sorry.
only was that good catch, not only was that one passed, but the Alabama law got was it
Yeah.
Alabama, Alabama,
North Carolina, or that
and
was something today. North Carolina. Yeah.
North Carolina was today, and
Uh-huh.
Alabama, their maps, they have
Yep.
to go and redo their maps and said, hey, you guys cannot keep creating these maps that doesn't favor race, does not factor in race. You can't write them in a way where you're trying to alienate a group of people. That's the foundations of this country. Um,
Mhm.
and the Supreme Court has said that over, more and over. So they've been losing all these Trump positions in the courts, which Trump appointed all the people to the courts. So
Right.
there he goes.
Hey, we can do Florida next, can't we?
Yeah, the laws are like, oh, Florida's getting theirs. The problem with Florida is they just passed it, so it hasn't gone through the system yet.
Yeah.
And once it gets through the system and the Supreme Court picks them up, a lot of stuff that DeSantis did is going to get overturned.
Yeah.
It's just, but it has to go through the system and they have to get it through the courts. But a lot of these Republican legislatures have been overreaching for so long, and now they're finally getting what's coming to them. I want
Yeah.
to quickly go over this topic because I know we're running out of time, and I had this one last topic. Was there's events that happened this past weekend in Ukraine and Russia with this Wagner group. If you guys haven't been following, and if you look at Seth's um, what would you call that branding, he stands with Ukraine. So I wanted to touch base a little bit about Ukraine, and
Top
I know we have
left.
feedback, but I'll fight through it. Uh, so essentially, what happened this weekend, to be a quick overview, Ukraine, everyone knows about the Ukraine-Russia war. Um, there's a faction inside the Russian military who decided that they didn't like the way the war was going, and they were going to overthrow the sitting defense minister. Um, we all took that in America to be like, no, that's
The
not the
Ministry of
case.
Defense,
It really,
right?
the Ministry of Defense, correct. And he actually would have, if he was succeeded, this general who was actually doing this march on Moscow, he would actually, people said, would have actually taken Putin's place. Even though this general is now saying he's not doing that, but that's the effect would have happened if he took over Moscow, Russia. And I wanted to take the time, and you guys are going to chime in here soon, but I wanted to take the time to show people that that's how great America is. America has the same ability to do this. I don't know if people realize in America that we have factions inside our system too. We have progressives, we have conservative. Prime example has been the January 6th riot, was one faction of our system who decided to denigrate our country. And they've paid they've paid greatly for doing that. And a lot of them are getting lifetime imprisonment. Um, I know I ran against someone who actually was at the riot. Crazy enough.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's real life that we take the moment to realize that we may have differences as a country, but when we let in our differences cloud our ultimate goal, which is to create a more perfect union, that is what we have to be mindful of in this day and age. And I just thought about, when I saw that this past weekend, it really hit me to show that how fragile a democracy is. Even though Russia is not really a democracy, but the tenets of it
Yeah,
is they should be a
a
democracy.
government.
But government, and so we have to be careful, us as progressives, us as conservatives, to realize that this can get dangerous. January 6th showed us that, and we are not, for my for me, you know, politicians speak, and that's what we do. That's just the nature of the thing, of the business, honestly. But the spirit and the heart of the country are is in it, in each individual person, and we have to start to look at ourselves as the conservative, or as a conservative needs to look at ourselves as the progressive, and realize that our heart and our spirit is the same. We have different ways of getting there, but the reality, it is still the same. And I just want to leave that message with people who listen, that yeah, we disagree with Republicans. We believe that progressive is the way, but understand that they're still your brothers and sisters.
Literally.
Yes, and
Mhm.
we need to make sure that our differences doesn't cloud our ultimate vision of who we are as Americans. And so I don't know what your guys' thoughts about what how that impacted you guys this weekend, but that what touched my heart was just that we're we're one crazy guy, Trump, away from that happening here in America. And so that was just my 2 cents.
He tried.
Yeah.
He,
I'm
he
still
he
trying.
basically tried to prevent the succession. Yeah, you're right. I just meant like while he's president, he tried to prevent the successor from gaining power, which is
Yeah.
a dictatorial move. We're not that
Yeah.
far off from Russia. Like at one point they were democracy. It can slip
Yeah.
pretty quickly if you empower the people that want to have power, which 35, 40% of Americans would support that, which is shocking. So
Yeah,
Well,
very.
they're willing to believe
I think
anything,
that a lot of
you know.
they are, and I think also they're and we see this in Eastern Europe. Russia is also in a lot of places that we don't really talk about. They're in Hungary. They're, oh my gosh, they've been in Moldova for years. They're in Georgia,
Yeah.
and I was at the very beginning of the well, not when the conflict was open, at the end of February, beginning of March. I had a long hauler contact me whose mother lived in Venetia, which is where a major
Hmm.
Air Force base is in Ukraine. Her mother was also a long hauler, very severely ill. But her mom decided, I'm not going to the United States because your healthcare system is so terrible. I'm not going to get the care I need. So I'm going to stay right
Yeah.
here. She taped up her windows and she's like, I'm going to take my chances with the tanks. And her daughter was just distraught, like, what do I do with this? But the only way we could get her out, we couldn't get her out
Yeah.
through Poland. It was too far. We had to get her out through Moldova. So I'm on the phone with friends, like, hey, who do you know in Moldova? And we ran into the same problem every time. Russia is all over Moldova. You're gonna have a heck of a time doing that.
Yeah,
We were able to get her out finally,
Yeah.
but I think we need to be cognizant of that in ourselves as well. Um, when we see these bullies assume their pulpit, as we saw with Trump,
mhm,
they're going to go for the weakest links first, like the people who can least speak for themselves, the people who are the most disproportionately affected, and they're going to buy into the lies and the charades. It's easy to just get all consumed in that, and then before you know it, you're under the foot of something really awful and you have no choice but to comply.
yeah,
And one by one, that's how the dominoes fall.
Yeah.
We can't do that. We have to stand up for people who are the most
Mhm.
disproportionately disadvantaged.
yeah. And that's the disparity that we have right now as a country, and that's what the Republicans are trying to beat their narrative. That, oh, join the Republican Party because we're the party of the people, or we're the Freedom Party, if DeSantis, whatever framing he guys use.
Right.
But the reality is, they're the ones who are creating these inequalities. Trickle
Yeah.
down economics is the essential reason
Mhm.
why we have these inequalities in place, that they're selling to those Republicans that, oh, this is going to make us more equal, but it's going to cost more
Well,
diversion because more money's going to be on the top.
yeah,
And
even the name trickle down econ. Oh yeah, I want that trickle. Yeah, give me what? Who wants
yeah,
that? No, I want equity.
It was
there's
it
no,
was a
was it,
it
Seth?
was a it was a it's not a term that Republicans ever use. It is a
No,
condescending term. So it's not like they're like, oh, we like trickle down economics. They just say, oh, it's not trickle down economics. It's supply
yeah,
side economics, and it doesn't matter what you call it.
yeah,
The reality is the top gets
We've
it.
seen absolute proof that it has not trickled down, and that they entirely at the top.
yep.
Yeah. So, guys, this was a quick show today. Obviously, it's going to be better on Thursday. We have to have something tomorrow. But what we'll do is Thursday, like I said, we're going to try to extend it out Thursday. Me and Steph talked about it. And hopefully, we can have Amanda back to finish it up on Thursday. We'll have to coordinate schedules.
Okay.
But I'll let you guys get the final words in before Thursday's show. And if you guys want, when we post this, leave a comment. Tell us what you want us to talk about. We tend to talk about issues that are currently happening right now and give our progressive perspective on things. But if there's a topic you guys want us to talk about or dive deep into, we love to do that. I mean, like I said, we have all these ideas that are progressive that we believe are good, but our main focus of the show is to show how those actual policies connect to your life and actually can help and improve your life. Because it's not great that we just sit there and talk about policies, but you don't have no idea how that really affects you.
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
if you have something, you have a problem in your life, like Amanda, long COVID, she's more of an expert than me and Steph is. So she can definitely give her 2 cents of what is happening and what policy should be in place to help those particular issues, and anything that me and Seth are where we believe would be policies that help your life. We would love to hear from you. So with that being said, I'll leave it to Seth and Amanda to close out.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like you said,
I'm
this
game
is
for
we're
it.
a community. We're not here to preach a pulpit. You know what I mean? We're a bottom up organization too. Like we want to know what you guys think, and you know, by everybody that's watching and everybody that's just thus far. So we're gonna work on be more communicative too, so that we can hear what you guys about politics as it is, because we would like to be a reflection of that and do the best we can do to report on that and represent you guys too. So, and thank you,
Yeah,
And
Amanda, for coming on. I'm glad we
oh,
finally
thank
got this
you.
done, because
Yeah, thanks
we've
for
been
having
trying
me.
for a couple weeks now, and scheduling, technical difficulties. I really didn't think we'd make it through this episode. I kept glitching out, so it was a success on my absolutely. And I hope a lot of
yes.
people watch this, because I'm gonna promote the hell out of it, because
Right.
this is one of my favorite episodes, hands down.
Oh, thank you.
Have you out?
Good to
Yeah.
Have you
hear.
back? Like I said, Amanda's smart as a whip.
I got
She got
opinions.
she got a million things going on in her brain. She can always
All right, man. Let's send this off. What?
definitely some
Well,
interesting conversations. Didn't so.
right. Well, again, poverty alleviation as prevention, that's everything. That's public health.
Mhm.
And it all comes down to do what you would do to others. Like if you want that done to you, do that to someone else in legal ways, please. Thank you.
Yeah, take care of each other.
Yeah,
Awesome.
every time.
That's great. That's the overarching theme, guys. Love each other. And if you love each other and you love yourself and you display that love for yourself to others, we will be a great society.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, we're gonna sign out. See you Thursday. Therefore, you have a wave
We will name a time.
and the
Working
place, and
on it.
we look forward to seeing you guys.